what characters do you get to play in this box set adventure?
So in this adventure, you can play the characters played by the Smith family in the comic book, which are Morty, Summer, Beth, Jerry, and a fifth mystery character, all playing the personas that they play in the Rick and Morty versus Dungeons & Dragons comic. And we have character sheets for all of them, and character art, and a beautiful DM screen with all of them kicking ass on it, and it's great.
Because Rick has written the dungeon, things are kind of skewed against Jerry. So he does. There are specific attacks against Jerry, and there are also like little burns on Morty, and snide remarks and things about that. So there are a lot of in jokes. If you just pick this up, you don't know little about Rick and Morty, you won't probably get all those. But if you're a big fan of Rick and Morty, and you read this adventure and you go through it, the jokes, you'll laugh. There's some good stuff in there. Yeah.
Is it going to be so strange to see people playing, all of these characters from Rick and Morty because of the work that you all have done?
Yeah.
There's going to be someone having to play Jerry.
Jerry as his wizard. Like you're
I feel like he's going to be the last pick, right?
Okay, so maybe so, obviously, for obvious reasons. But in the comic book, Jerry's wizard is actually very competent and cool, like a cool guy.
Okay.
And so it's one of the things that drives Rick crazy in the comic is that Jerry's like kind of sexy as the wizard. He's like, no. But yeah, they're all equally amazing characters, and I think it's gonna be fun. It's a fun experience to try to play Morty playing a rogue. Like that's a fun challenge for people who are fans of Rick and Morty, I think.
Why are these two universes a good match?
Well, it's weird, right? It's a good question. I think part of it is that there is a sense of humor. Like D&D does have a sense of humor. Like when you play in your D&D games, you have your in jokes, you have your table talk is funny. You've got there's things that happen that are just funny, and obviously Rick and Morty is funny as well. But what I always like about Rick and Morty is that even though you're laughing hysterically and it's so inappropriate, and you're just like, oh, God, did anyone just hear that? See me laughing at it. I always watch it on airplanes, which is I'm the crazy, creepy laughing lady. It's dead quiet, and then I'm like, sorry. Okay.
Well, at least I knew who that was now.
It's me. It's always me.
The descent.
It's always on airplanes. It's always my go-to. But there's also that underlying, it can be very sentimental too. It always you end up getting actually wasn't kind of expecting that. I feel like D&D does that a lot as well.
Right.
That it's maybe in a different way, but there is always that moment where something happens in the party and you're like, oh, that's actually affecting me in a way I wasn't expecting to be affected in this fantasy role-playing game. So I think they both are really good at just really touching your human side. We like to laugh, we like to have fun. It can be off the wall. Rick and Morty is fantasy in a way that D&D is fantasy, and then there's those moments where it's like, but this actually is touching, and this actually does make sense. And so I think the audiences are very, very similar, as we've learned with the comic book as well. It's just, if you like to laugh, if you like to have fun, you're very passionate about what you love, you're going to love it.
Why do you think Rick and Morty has been so successful as a show?
I think because it's honest in a way. It's like it's not trying to. I think when you're facing characters that are really flawed, there is a certain sense of, at least for me, that there's an honesty about it. There's there's not anything trying to prove anybody. Somebody who's just completely real, out there, like Rick is. Rick is unapologetically Rick. And even though he can be a complete ass sometimes, there's something disarming about that he isn't duplicitous, and that he isn't trying to hide stuff. He is just who he is. and it's accept him or reject him. And I think also Morty is like, he's got these values, like he'll stick up for things that he believes in, and he's got some bravery, even though he comes off as, you know, like a coward a lot of the times. He's very brave, and the family, as flawed as they are, there is this current of love in there that holds them just barely together, even though there's so much, you know, infighting and disagreements and all that. At the end of the day, they love each other and they're working it out. And I think that's, for me, that's the thing that's, and it's funny as hell, but that's the thing that I feel that really works about it. And I think that's the thing that's resonant and why people enjoy it and watch it. It's this balance of total flaws, total honesty, and yet there is this current of love. Like when the chips are down, they really actually do pull through for one another. So, and that brings that bit of heart and that bit of warmth that makes it like something that isn't worth watching. Like something that is just completely devoid of soul. As clever as it is, I can turn those things off because there's no redeeming quality to it for me. It has to have that redeeming quality.
I love Rick and Morty, and I've always enjoyed it. And so when this product needed a lead, I was like, "Can I please? Will you guys trust me with this?" And that ended up working out okay. But Rick and Morty itself, the reason I like it is because it's the first time I've ever really watched a cartoon that made me feel like it was aimed at cynical bastards like me, you know? I've never much been a cartoon fan. Even when I was a kid, I didn't watch them very much. So when Rick and Morty got really popular, I was late to the game. But there's something about it that, I don't know, it's a way of viewing life through this cynicism and through the like sarcasm, which is the worst parts of ourselves. And then to see those moments, I think with Rick and Morty, my favorite moments are the ones where you realize that Rick really cares about his family and that he can be as cynical and awful as he wants to be, and he can say rude things and be hurtful, and that there are consequences for that, you know, like it's not always just like rolling off Mr. Cool Guy, but he ends up hurting people that he cares about, and I don't think that most cartoon shows are brave enough to have that kind of depth. This is all off the cuff. I have no idea, but I'm sure there is a canonical scientific reason why Rick and Morty is so popular. But for me, it's that mix of like, it's not just one thing or the other. It's not just quippy one-liners and adventure, and then everything's fine at the end of the day. It's also, you know, it's this family dynamic show that ends up being really meaningful. And the juxtaposition of the science fiction elements of Rick and Morty with the home drama parts of Rick and Morty it's really well done. It makes you care about both sides, no matter how outlandish they are. Yeah, I don't know. I think it's just a really unique mix.
Yeah, it's always self-aware too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Much in the way that like Rick is aware that he is not a good person.
Yeah.
You know, deep
yeah.
down.
For
like,
sure.
The show is aware of what it is.
Yeah.
At all times.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too. Is I've really liked villains and anti-heroes in general, and I find it super interesting that Rick is he's the protagonist, one of the main character of the show, but he's not. It's very clear to me that the writers never intended him to be a hero, and yet he has so many heroic qualities. He's very funny, which is aspirational. He's very smart, you know, smartest person in the universe or whatever. But those things didn't save him. They don't save you. They don't keep you from being a jerk. You have to be more. It doesn't matter how funny or how smart you are. You have to also be kind, or you're just going to turn out to be an asshole. And I think that that's a really valuable lesson, you know, because we all aspire to be funny and smart. You think, oh, if I was funnier or smarter, then everybody would like me. And nobody likes Rick, you know. He's got Morty, and Morty doesn't like him half the time. So I don't know. I think it's kind of an important human lesson hidden in there.